All right, all right, all right. Welcome, everybody to Slice of Pie. This is Tipsy Tuesday. Shelly Jeffco. I am so excited, y'all. I actually dressed up today for my man. Nathan Todd is in the house. Welcome.
Hey Shelly, how are you?
I am so excited. So, y'all, I was trying to think of how I could possibly introduce Nathan Todd. And I was even thinking about man, how can I button this up so you all understand the power of Nate? Power.
Button it up.
Power Nate.
Okay.
Okay.
There you go. Button it up. There you go.
All right, Nate. So
Yes.
First of all, listen, you've been working in this position where you are now for how long? How long have you been with the organization?
I've been with LexisNexis since 2015.
Okay.
And I've been in the current position of education program manager for. I've been on this team for probably going on to 2.5 years.
Okay.
2.5 years.
Okay, and I was thinking about what it is. There is something about Nate. So let me just share some things that our senior leaders talk about their reflection on Nate and kind of why he's here today on Slice of Pie. I'm looking over here because I'm cheating. I'm reading off my screen. Okay, I'm cheating for real. So self-motivated professional. He's proficient in root cause analysis. Some of this stuff is way above my pay grade. He is literally one of the most influential employees that we have within one of our largest organizations in our business. Nate is known by just everybody. Okay. And part of that is the fact that he not only influences folks to make some actual changes, the way that we support our clients, but even the way that we kind of connect with our employees. And so one of the really cool things that I thought is, I'm going to bring you on here because there's a lot of us who've been in the workforce for quite some time.
You won't tell the whole story.
You won't tell the whole story.
Right.
And, we really, a lot of us are hitting 20, 24, 25, 30 years in our jobs. And we're, it's about time for a refresh for a lot of us. So we got millennials nipping at our heels.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, who are you?
Well, you know what? I'm 51 years old. I hail from Chicago. And I've been in Atlanta for 24 years. And I didn't. When I first moved here, my grandfather didn't want me to move to Atlanta because they were in Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Arkansas to be exact. And at the time, my girlfriend, which is my daughter's mom, I have 2 daughters, she was like, let's move to Atlanta and try something different. And I was like, yeah, sure. But my grandfather didn't want me to move here. I didn't understand at the time, but as I got older and I began to understand him a little bit better, it was like he didn't want me to move here because his thought process of what the South was when he was growing up. That's why he left and moved to Chicago. So when I said I was moving down south, in particular to Georgia, he was like, hey, that's where the Klan is from. So he didn't want me here. But in the grand scheme of things, God's plan for us, it takes us places that we had no idea that we would ever come to.
Yeah.
And I can say for the better part of my life or the time that I've been here in the 24 years, this has been the best experience of my life.
Wow.
I love Chicago. It will always be home, but I became a man in Atlanta.
Wow. I love that. I love the fact that, even stepping out on faith. So for those of y'all coming in, please, comment and tell us how you're feeling. But I love that because I know you're a man of faith. And so you're actually walking it, like for real, y'all. He's not just saying it.
You have to, they say you have to walk it like you talk.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm no different than anybody else, but my faith carries me through a lot of things because the things that I've seen and I've experienced, I'm like, there can only be one reason for that. it wasn't because of a stroke of luck or because somebody just thought I was handsome. That happened because of the position that he put me in.
Yeah. I
mean,
love that.
I think the first time I didn't even realize I may have, the first time I felt an angel in my presence was, I was about maybe 11 or 12. I was riding my bicycle in the neighborhood and my shoestring got caught in the chain. But there was a car coming towards me and I was trying to get the shoestring out of the chain and the car was like this close to me. And for some reason, my bike I just jumped up on the curb and I don't remember how.
Wow.
The second time I was crossing the street, playing with my friends, not paying attention, and there was a city bus coming. I ran against the red light. So the bus was coming, and this guy, when I stopped and saw the bus, some guy just ran out of nowhere, snatched me out of the street, and then he just disappeared.
Wow.
And I was like, where did he go? But as you get older, you start to realize that there are angels who walk among us, and God protects us, and he gives us favor and light through every situation. But it's about your faithfulness. And although I've been through my share of places where I'm like, I'm not doing that, it always comes back to the same thing. Nathan, you have to be faithful to get this done.
Wow, I love that. That is a powerful, powerful, powerful testimony. And see, God's already working because he's just going to use us, y'all on the line. It's going to be what it is. If it's a ministry night, that's what you got. That's what you get.
Yeah.
I love that. And that hits a point. One of the things that I hear feedback about you is that you have that thing. There's some people that, they just have that thing and nobody can put their finger on it. And yet there are folks that are just kind of drawn to you. And so I'm always curious about like, what is the thing? And I know that some of it is from your faith. I also know that it comes from your confidence. Did it take you some time to build up your confidence, and how do you maintain it? Like, how do you keep it?
You know what? The confidence wasn't always there. I've always known I've had certain skills, but my thing was always, I would always push other people in front of me. Oh no, he can go in front of me. If I played basketball, I knew how to play, but I would shrink to the back. And I'm like, I know I can beat this guy, but I would just shrink to the back. Maybe it wasn't my time. But as I got older, you get tired of being in the back. And when you walk into a room, people ask you questions and you begin to speak. And for me, as I speak, what I've been told is you resonate power in your words. And then you learn that there's the power of life and death in the tongue. So it's that thing where it's like, for me, I'm more comfortable with speaking life over people or positive things into their life. That's what helps keep me energetic and keep me going forward. So the current position that I'm in as an education program manager, it allows me to do that thing, meaning to speak life over people, because maybe you don't understand why you shouldn't send an email in all caps.
Yeah.
How it affects other people. Or, when we have engagement situations and we have the rewards and recognition ceremony and I'm the MC. So it's my job to bring everybody in the room to kind of get them up and moving and get them involved. So for me, I really like just to see people's reactions and the smiles on their faces. So that's what, again, makes me feel that I have the best job at Lexus Next.
Yeah, I love that. I think the other thing is, when I listen to, I'm gonna shade other podcasts. I'm just gonna do it. When I listen to other folks on LinkedIn, where all things are true because it's on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I'm always thrown by the kind of the mirage that people put forward. The some of the stuff that they're saying that is not actually real. And one of the things that I really appreciate about you is that you are the same yesterday, today. You're the same, just very authentic, and what you say, you actually back it up. And so I wonder if you have advice, because there's such a huge, I don't even know if it's because we just came out of COVID where people are like pretending they're people, totally different people. But do you have advice that you can share, especially to folks who are just coming into their early career? that, you know, you don't taint your brand, you don't just make stuff up. You know, how do you manage that?
You are you are the key and the CEO representative of your brand. So if you meet people and one day you're happy and the next day you're shading everybody and then the next day you're gossiping, people say your brand is shady.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to be authentic. When I was a kid, the guys that I always wanted to be like were the guys who were cool. They walked a certain way, they talked a certain way, they represented themselves the same way 24/7. So that was always my thought process. So coming into the spaces that I've been around some very influential and authentic people, and they're always like, "Hey, if this is how you talk," Steve Harvey is one of the people I look up to.
Yeah.
How he talks, that's who he is. You know, you don't see Steve Harvey on camera and off camera being different. Dave Chappelle, Johnny Carson. I mean, these are all people that I kind of look up to in entertainment. I'm like, that's kind of how I want to be. You know, so for young people coming into their career, how you move ahead is you want to, again, be honest with your audience, be honest with yourself. If you're doing something that makes you uncomfortable, that means it's going against your ethics. And if it's against your ethics, then you might want to stay out of that.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And you know, something I was just thinking about too is purpose. So one of the things that I love about you, Nate, is that you're very clear about your purpose is actually aligned to what you're doing. It's not like I don't know what it is. You know what it is.
Right.
I get a lot of questions. People ask me at my job and outside. They'll ask me, you know, how do I figure out what my purpose is? And I always tell them I use the instruction manual. And for me, so y'all know, my instruction manual is the Bible. It is just
exactly.
That's my instruction manual. So how what would you say then for those of us who are, you know, and there's a lot of folks who are cool kids our age who are trying to figure out what their purpose is, you know, what's some of the advice that you can give, because you're kind of settled into and you're doing it, you're actually playing out your purpose.
It took some time to get here, but in order to walk in your purpose, you're going to have trial and error. You're going to get involved in some things that you may not like. And sometimes you may say, well, I'm being driven by the money. These days with millennials, everybody's chasing the bag. But the bag isn't always your purpose. The bag can help, but sometimes the bag can block or distort the blessing of what your purpose is in front of you. A guy I used to work with, his name was George Tony. I used to work at this law firm in Chicago. He was the supervisor, and his girlfriend at the time was a lawyer. She got hired at a firm in California, so she left and went to California. She asked him to go with her. He went. Now, I don't know how much money he made in Chicago at the firm, but she told him when you get to California, hey, find whatever it is that you want to do. I'll hold it down for us, until you get ready. He told me one day he used to walk past this YMCA every day, and he would go in and see the kids playing basketball. So he started going in and kind of teaching the kids how to play basketball, because he played ball in college and high school and college. And the guy who ran the YMCA offered him a job. And my friend George told me, he was like, that was the best move he ever made. He's like, it doesn't pay much, but it's so fulfilling. And so what I took from that was my purpose. It should be something that fulfills me in here. The money, the fame, all of that stuff, the people, they fade away. But if you're not fulfilled inside of here, what are you really doing? And so for me, I like things, but I'm not really spoiled by things. So if I don't have a $500,000 house, I think I'll be okay. But what always drives me is that, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? Do they speak positively of you, or do they say, man, I'm glad he's gone? And I always wanted to leave a good impression. So I try not to get caught up in the money part of it. And I'm learning that if you align yourself with the right people, and it's not you making friends to get ahead, but just people who think like you think. Your friends are your starting five, as my friend Ron calls it. The starting five, they're gonna make sure that we all winning. And that's what I try. I try to make sure that the team that I work with or move within, they all move in the same direction.
I love that. What I was also thinking about was your passion for kids, which is a lot like mine.
Yeah.
We believe the kids are the future. we absolutely love kids. And I was thinking about mentoring kids, and we talk a lot about mentorship and sponsorship as grown folks in our jobs, but I wanted to touch a little bit on kind of your thoughts around how we can improve, even do a better job of mentoring and coaching the kids that are coming in and out of our lives. And what do you think about that?
I believe in mentoring. I believe in getting involved. You have to get your hands in the dirt. The only way to get the seeds to grow and cultivate is you have to get your hands inside of them. The church that I attend at Victory, one of the senior pastor, Pastor Rouse, at the time, he preached a sermon one day, and he says, when you turn 40 or 50, he said, that's not the time for you or your kids become adult. That's not the time for you to say, hey, it's time for me to retire and I'm just going to go live my life. Because there's always a kid who needs help, who needs somebody to cover them.
Yeah.
And so that really set with me. And I was like, you know what? My daughters are getting older, but some of my friends have younger kids. So you know what? I make it a point to try to get involved as much as I can. Some of my friends, like the kids, all call me Uncle Nate, Uncle Todd, and it's like, so even some of my cousins who have kids, it's the same thing. I treat them like my nieces and nephews because there's always going to be a kid that needs something. And everything that I have in here, because I can't take it with me, you got to give it away. And so one of the things I really love about working at LexisNexis is our involvement within the community.
Yeah.
I really like going into places, and we have on the LexisNexis Cares t-shirts, and people are like, when we knew LexisNexis was coming, we knew we were going to get a good team. And that, for me, it gives me pride within the company, and it makes me feel like I'm in the right place.
Yeah, it's your commitment to community, because look, there are a lot of companies that offer these corporate responsibility type programs, and you can put on a t-shirt and slap some paint on and say you did something. But I think the difference, exactly. But I think the difference here is that, Nate, you genuinely care about the communities in which we live and serve, and so that is why it's stickier. It just makes it more a different relationship. And again, if you guys, do you have a mentor? Do you have a mentor, and do you, coach?
You know what? I have a mentor. What I do is when I connect with certain people, I'm like a sponge. I'm just trying to soak up everything. Like Gustavo, I love talking to Gustavo and picking his brain. I've had many conversations with Lynn. It's like sometimes you can meet the person could be older or they could be younger, but you can learn something from everybody. So I just like to sponge information as much as I can, because like one of the greatest things my mom ever gave me was the love of reading. And so when you open up a book and you read, you pick up so much information. And like reading books for movies, the book version is so much better than the movie version.
Yeah.
But so when I meet people who I find interesting, like a book, I'm just trying to get the cliff notes, I'm trying to read everything that they have, that they offer inside. So for me, that whole thing, I'm trying to give it back as much as I've received. I'm trying to give back even more.
I love that. That is, for me, mentoring is very key. So I have a lot of mentors myself, but I also, peer mentoring. So for those of you guys who are in the chat, I'm hoping that you're picking up on some of the points that's working for us. Hopefully it'll work for you. Is definitely, you want to make sure that you have mentor, whether it's at work or not, having coaches. I call it my accountability circle or my circle, or you need that, right? Just to deal with life. You need an accountability team, because sometimes we hear things and it hits us here and we're like, what did she say to me? You need that person to tap, hey, listen, man, so that's not what was really being said. You took it to heart. Slow down a little bit, think about it, and then respond. And sometimes you have to really step away from the computer
or the phone for a minute, and you really have to check yourself. Like, is this worth picking a fight over, or sending an email back and causing a whole problem? Or can I just look at this and say, you know what? I read Shelly's email. Thanks for the information, Shelly. I really appreciate it. I'll look into that or pay attention to that for the next time, and let it go. And so, a lot of the life lessons that we have, or lessons that we learn at work, they apply to our personal relationships, because they're still relationships.
That's a good point. So I want to talk about your journaling.
Sure.
All right. I want to talk about your journaling. So you know, this is one of those things that I was surprised to hear about you, but I want to hear more about. More about journaling. What do you do, and why are you doing it?
You know what? I didn't realize that my gift was to be a writer. I had no clue. When I was in high school, my sophomore year of high school, at the time I met what I considered the prettiest girl ever. Her name was Shannon, but I thought she was the prettiest girl I had ever seen in my life. And so I wrote her a poem, and I gave it to her, and a couple of my friends, she showed it to them, and they started harassing me like, oh man, how could you write that? That was so corny. And my feelings were really hurt. I was like, damn, I can't believe she did that to me. Now, she and I are still friends to this day, and she says she still has that poem in a notebook, and I'm like, wow. But what I did was I started writing poems in a notebook. I never really shared it with anybody. Then one day I read the Bible, 1 year, matter of fact, from beginning to end. And as I kept reading it, or as I read through it, I was like, this is just a collection of stories about people's lives, how they felt, what they were going through, the stresses, the wins and the losses.
Yeah.
And as I was writing in my notebook, one day I was like, you know what? Instead of writing about this poems, which are basically an emotional outpouring, I'm just going to start writing what I'm feeling and what I'm going through and lessons. And it didn't really sink in until like years later. But as I read back through the journals, everyone has a time, a date, the time, the date, and the day, so that it is marked in history. And as it kept going, I was like, I'm going to leave these journals for my daughters, and you know, I want them to read these books later and understand what was my dad going through when he was 18 years old. What was his life like? Or when I was born, when he was 24, what was his emotional state? You know, or when I brought home that F, how did he feel? You know, the successes, the triumphs, the ups and everything is in these journals. And like I said, I don't journal every day.
Yeah.
But I'm probably at about maybe 6 or 7 journals.
Wow.
And like I said, again, my daughters are like, when can we read them? I'm like, not till I'm out of here. Because these are life lessons. And like I said, I try to leave little notes in there about, you know, things I want them to pay attention to. I write prayers in these notebooks. Like anything that hits me here, I write it in there. And I really want them to understand you can succeed. It's going to be hard. There are things you're going to have to face down and things you're going to have to overcome, but you can succeed. And I'm hoping that these books are a path, you know, give them the path and the keys to success.
Wow.
So, you know, that's what I started doing. And it's like the poetry, it's still there. I still write occasionally, but like I said, I keep the journals, you know, hey, this is what was going on today. Like, I'll probably put this in there tonight. You know, I'll put this in there tonight.
Oh man, I think that is so awesome, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking about, you know, the dads who might not communicate so well, you know,
right.
It's harder sometimes, you know, stereotypically that it's harder for guys to communicate, especially with the girls, you know. So the idea that you're documenting your life and they'll be able to come behind you and really get a good, true understanding of who you are, it is priceless. And that's just something that I absolutely recommend this. In the chat saying I'm proud of you, Nate. Yeah, absolutely, because you're absolutely documenting, and this is so awesome.
Yeah. Because remember, back in the day, our grandparents would write down, like my grandmother, she wrote everybody's name and their birthday in her Bible. But nobody knows where that Bible's at anymore.
Yeah.
So that history is no longer there. And so if you look at your family history, a lot of the stories of how we came to be, they found fossils from 1 million years ago of a dinosaur bone. But our human lifespan is less than 100 years typically. So if you think about it, we're here for a microsecond. So the thing that you're going to learn between the age of being born and let's say 78 years old, if you get that far, that's nothing. But if you can write it down in a book and pass it along to somebody, that's going to help some, because these lessons, they don't change. The only thing that changes is the scenery and the background and the people's names. But the lessons, they're always going to be the same.
I love that. So thinking about that, what's the legacy that you want to leave for your kids?
The legacy that I want to leave for my daughters is that I want them to be self-sufficient. I want them to be women who are in control of their emotions, but I want them to also know that if you want it, you got to work for it, kid. Nobody's just going to give it to you. And this whole facade of I'm going to become a social influencer and make $1 million.
Yeah. That's
not how it really works, kid. You really need to understand that's not how it works. The reality is you're going to have to get up early. You're going to go to bed late. You're going to spend time crying some days. And some days you're going to have your hands up like, yes, I got it. And some days you're going to be like, I did everything I was supposed to, and I still didn't get it. But as it says in the Bible, you're going to fall down 7 times, but you got to get back up 8. And I want the lessons that I want them to understand is that your dad loved you. And I gave everything I had. And that was, for me, that was a lot, because when I moved here, my youngest daughter was 6 months old and my oldest was 3. So for the last 24 years, I've been a long distance dad, but they lived in Louisiana. Their mom moved from Chicago to Louisiana, but it was my responsibility to get from Georgia to Louisiana. Didn't matter if she didn't want to meet me halfway or she didn't want to go half on a plane ticket. They're my kids. It's my responsibility. It's nobody else's. But, you know, I had a lot of people pouring into me and covering me. And, hey, do you need money for gas? Man, how did you know? My Aunt Doris, she's like the family prayer warrior. And she would call me sometime like, hey, God put it on my heart. And she would just like, I sent you $150. And I'm like, for what? She was like, for ice cream. I'm like, who buys $150 in ice cream? And she's like, well, buy the ice cream for the girls and then just do whatever else you need to do with it. And I will be sitting on the edge of the bed like, I got to pay the light bill and I got to pay my car note and I got to, and all these things. And you can't sleep at night because your brain is like,
oh yeah,
they're going to turn off the lights and take my car. And that money would come. And I'm like, again, the power of God, him knowing what you need. You just got to be faithful. That's all I'm asking you to do. Be faithful, and I will get you through every situation. And like I say, from the time I moved here until now, and like my youngest daughter, she's moved here. She's been here 7 years, and so she finished her last year of high school here, and she's been with me. Now I can't kick her out. She's like, it's gonna be me and you, buddy. I'm like, damn. But you know, I mean, I just want them to always know that Dad loved you and I gave all I had. I mean, if I don't leave, it's not really about leaving them $1 million. It's really just about leaving them with the impression, because it's, as a black man, we get written off too easily that we're not responsible fathers. We're not all of these things. But when we do what we're supposed to, it's like, well, that's what you're supposed to do anyway. I accept that, but I also know that in order for there are young men who look like me and look up to me, and it's my responsibility to make sure that the picture that they see is a face of responsibility and caring and loving. And my grandfather, George Todd Jr., he taught me that you gotta. It's not what you take. It's not what you keep. It's what you give away.
Wow.
And yeah, his nickname was Sweet Man, and I was like, I never really understood that, but he was always like, Nathan, it's not what you keep, it's what you give away. And when you leave here, what are you leaving behind? Some shoes and coats and a bank account, or are you leaving something that can be passed on? Because the shoes and coats, they can't be passed on through generations.
Yeah.
But the energy and the lesson that's what gets passed on.
Wow.
So for me, that's what's most important for me.
I love that. What kind of advice would you give to maybe the kids without dads, the kids who are, don't have anybody standing in the gap?
To the kids who don't have dads, you have to, I won't say unfortunately, but you have to find that space, and you can't let anger be your crutch. I didn't meet my dad until I was 21. And it's a weird story of how I even met him. I was in the mall with my mom, and we walking down the hallway, and this lady walks past us. And me and my brother stop, we keep walking, and my mother stops. And my brother says, "Who's the lady?" I'm like, "I don't know." My mother calls us back, and she says, "I want to introduce you to your grandmother." And I was like, "No, my grandmother lives on 73rd and Crandon. This is my stepdad's mom." And my mother's like, "No, your other grandmother." And I was like, thinking her mom. I'm like, "No, she lives on 81st and Avalon." And my mother's like, "No, this is your dad's mom, Eugene." Wow. And I was like, "Huh?" And I was stuck, but walked over to her and she hugged me. And it was a little weird. And I was like, you're 21 years old. And then she invited me to her house and we talked and we had a good conversation. And then she says, "Well, your dad's going to be here on Sunday." And, it was just a weird space, but we met, and then I looked at him and I was like, now I see where the ears come from. I'm just a little bit taller than he is, but we look alike. And I was like, now I get it. And my mother, she never badmouthed my dad. She was always like, your dad, we just didn't work out, but your dad is a good guy. And I always be like, well, if he's good, why he's not here? So for kids who don't have someone standing in the gap, you have to make yourself open sometimes. You can't hide behind anger. Well, my dad's not here, because I had uncles and cousins who were older than me. And they were always like, "Hey, little man, I got you. You need something, call me. And if your dad's not here, don't worry about that." And nobody ever said, your dad ain't They were always like, it just didn't work out. But moving forward, me and my dad, we kind of, like I said in the beginning, it was kind of like touch and go. But then probably about maybe 10, 15 years ago, we reconnected when his mom died at the funeral. And I walked up to him and I'm standing in his face and I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He was like, "How you doing?" He walked away and I was like, and I walked up to him again. I said, "How you doing?" He was like, "I'm good. You need something?" And I was like, "It's me, Nate." He was like, "Oh," because it had been that long, because we had just stopped talking.
Yeah.
But after the funeral, I met my sister, and that was the beginning of a beautiful bond that I have with her. And my dad, we talked, periodically. And one day I just told him, I was like, "Hey, man, I didn't appreciate you not being here. That took a part of me, and I could never make that connection." And I cried and I told him, and he was like, "First thing I want to do is apologize to you as a man." And it was like that. Him saying that took the weight off of me, and that allowed me to say that people can change. And from that moment forward, we have the best relationship. And wow. So for a kid who didn't have his dad, I had to be open to allow other men in particular to pour into me, because had they not done that, I wouldn't have been able to receive anything he said to me later.
Wow.
So, we all have a story, but again, it's about being open and learn. You got to learn to let anger go, because it'll rob you and have you looking gray and old.
We don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that. Exactly.
there's so many jewels in what, and thank you again for sharing that very, very
Sure.
personal story. But there's so many jewels, and again, I just wanted to make sure that we get some of this out, because I know, even if they're not live on the chat, when this goes into replay, there might be somebody in the replay that
Right.
needs this. So, better for us to step up and serve in the way we're called to serve, which
Yeah,
is
exactly.
part of
Because
it.
everybody, again, we all go through the same. Excuse me. We all go through the same thing.
Yeah.
You're born. You're gonna have experiences. You're gonna die. That's your timeline.
Yeah.
Between your birth and your death, there's a timeline, and we all see the same lesson. But we may see it through different eyes. But I can help somebody's gonna hear the thing and say,
Yeah.
I did that. That happened to me when I was 21. I didn't meet my dad till here. And I couldn't let the anger go. And again, if God can forgive and says, I'll give you my grace and mercy, and it says, so if he can do that, and I can believe that somebody or an entity that I've never seen,
Yeah.
if I can believe in that enough to say, you know what, he gives me grace and mercy and forgives me, how can I not forgive a man who I look just alike? How can I sit there and say, I can never forgive you for what you did?
Wow.
And it's trust me, it's hard to do, but you gotta swallow that pride. And because when they say you blocking your blessings, and I'm telling you, my dad meeting my daughter, he's met Nia, he hasn't met Brianna yet, because Brianna in Chicago, we can't seem to get there at the same time. But his relationship with Nia, for me, that means a lot.
Yeah.
And he calls her and they talk back and forth, and I'm like, had I not let that anger go, this moment wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
So God He will move mountains, and He will move people in places to clear paths for you to step into the light. But you got to be willing to say, all right, I'm gonna step into it. So
I love this. Again, going back to walking the faith out. There's a comment. Hey, Tina, there's a comment. Amen. God knows just what we need. And a lot of folks supporting what you're saying. Yeah. So I'm curious about where you go. Like, what's next for you? Like, where do you see your, what's in the future plans? What does that look like for you?
You know what? I did my first vision board this year.
Okay.
She hates when I say this. She hates when I say girlfriend, but my significant other, she convinced me to do a vision board this year. So me and her daughter, we did a vision board together, and I wrote certain things down. And one of the things on my vision board is I have written two books, and the third one is like halfway done. But it's like you need to let these books go. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. Something else I'm working on is I would really love to have my own radio show, and that's kind of where, like, at working at the program Cocoa with Nate, or the interviews that I do through customer and consumer operations, it's helping prepare me for that.
Yes.
So a lot of times I'm in the car and I'm listening to music, and I'm going through my whole DJ mode. Like, you just say that was such and such, and this time this is the weather, and I'm knowing that's my path. That's where I'm supposed to go.
It's crazy. I just had an image flash across my face with you sitting in a studio with one of those long studio mics talking into. So I saw that just now when you said that.
Because you know what? At this age of 51, I know I have more days behind me than in front of me. Yeah. So the best thing I can do is to live out my dreams, but make sure that the dream is in alignment with the path that he lights up for me.
Yes.
I know that writing and my love of music and reading, they all tie together for that purpose. And everybody has their church. And I know my church is, I may not speak as eloquent as some people, but I know the words that I speak they mean something because they come from here. So as long as you speak from the heart, it really doesn't matter. So for me, the next step is to release the 2 books, and then get that radio show off the ground and running.
Well, we definitely want, as soon as you get those books out, let us know, because we're going to be all over the PR because that's how I roll. I have zero shame in supporting my friends and getting where they want to be. That's just what's up.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
And when you do the radio show, please let me know, because I definitely want to make sure that we have you back and talking about all that. So that kind of brings us to the end. Before we go, I wanted to see if you had any final thoughts.
You know what? Man, you have to be authentic. Be true to who you are. If you talk a certain way, be that way all the time. But try not to be mean spirited with the things that you say.
Yeah.
If you can do that and you just love people in spite of what they may say and do to you, and then you got to slap the first cheek, slap the other one. Sometimes you have to let them slap the other cheek again. But really, man, it's just have fun in whatever it is that you do, and don't. For me, money is not what drives me to succeed. What drives me to succeed is just to see the smiles on the people's faces that I interact with. And as long as my daughters can say my dad was a good guy, or he took care of us, that's all that matters to me. Everything else, it doesn't mean anything.
Wow. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much, y'all. This was Nathan Todd. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm trying to keep it together, y'all, but I'm gonna cry after this call, because I feel so blessed having you here. You hit on so many things, and there's so many jewels, and I mean, it's just incredible.
You know what? Thank you for the opportunity to come here and be able to just speak my little truth. So I really appreciate that. Absolutely. You know what? And I take that back. It's not my little truth.
It's your whole truth.
Me to speak my truth.
Exactly. It's your whole truth. So for those of y'all watching, please love, like, share, subscribe, whatever else you're supposed to do on social media. Y'all, I'm not a okay. And come back on Thursday for a slice of pie when we talk teens, co-hosted by my daughter Isabella. And so with that, we're gonna end. But thank you, Nate.
Thank you, Shelly. Thanks for having me. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Thanks for everybody who watched it. Hey, listen, if they want to reach out to me on IG, I'm at Chocolate Boy Writer, Chocolate Boy _writer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Y'all don't forget to follow him on IG.
Thanks, Shelly.
All right. Take care.
Have a good one.